Welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Heather Childers, along with Joe Pinion. Vice President Kamala Harris facing some criticism after suggesting that people who live in rural areas aren't able to make photocopies because they don't have a print shop nearby. Listen.
I don't think that we should underestimate what that could mean. Because in some people's mind, that means, well, you're going to have to Xerox or photocopy your ID to send it in to prove you are who you are. Well, there are a whole lot of people, especially people who live in rural communities, who don't. There's no Kinkos, there's no Office Max near them.
So these remarks come as part of the argument against new voter ID laws, including those in some states that do require a photocopy of your ID to vote by mail. So let's bring our panel back in to talk a little bit more about this. Ford, how out of touch is she? Because, yeah, there's no Kinkos because FedEx bought them back in, what, 2004?
Three points on that. One, I am jaw-dropped at how unprepared she is for these interviews, and you're absolutely right, Heather, that essentially FedEx bought Kinkos. It doesn't exist anyway. Apparently, she doesn't seem to understand that you can do all of this on your smartphone, and you've been able to do it on your smartphone for the past 7 years. What we're seeing here is Democrats literally making stuff up to justify opposition to voter ID, because when we look at the federal legislation that they want to pass on Capitol Hill, it essentially is trying to rig elections in their favor. They give the game up every single time when they talk about voter ID because their opposition is absolutely ridiculous.
Now, Quincy, I want to come to you because I don't know what's more comical. The fact that she doesn't seem to realize that Office Max is no longer Office Max, or that Kinkos is no longer Kinkos, or the fact that they just routinely, with a straight face to the American people, tell you black people are too stupid to be able to get an ID, rural people are too inept and too much of a hillbilly to be able to find a way to Xerox an ID, and somehow they believe that the American people are perfectly fine with all of this.
No, well, here's the thing. I live in Tennessee. We have a lot of rural communities that are in this state, and they're completely underserved. But guess what? There are some amazing, smart, intelligent people that are in these rural communities. I've never lived in California, don't ever plan on living in California. So with her even coming out of her mouth talking about rural anything doesn't make sense to me, because number one, she hasn't showed any kind of leadership, not even, let's just take the rural concept out of it. She hasn't showed national leadership at all. So how can she even say anything relative to rural America? The rural America is the heartbeat of America, and America knows that. So again, this is a lack of leadership. And as an elected official, the vice president of the most freest country in the world, I don't understand how she is so out of tune to what's relative and what America is standing on and what American businesses. I mean, she didn't even know, to your point, she didn't even know that Kinkos is no longer in existence. I mean, I just don't, we're wasting time even almost talking about it with her.
Quincy, from your great state of Tennessee, Senator Marsha Blackburn, and I'll pitch this question to you, though, Melanie, she had said that this was an example of classist, elitist think, and it, of course, is not the first time that we've heard something like this from the Biden administration. President Biden himself, and I'll paraphrase, said that, minorities are too stupid to use the internet and can't afford IDs. So on the heels of that, when are members of these communities, whether it be rural or minority communities, going to recognize that maybe the Democratic Party doesn't understand them or work for them?
They really need to wake up. And I think it's segments like this and the fact that, outlets like Newsmax ratings are up. They're going to realize this, that Marsha Blackburn took the words right out of my mouth. Of all the elitist comments that you could make, Kamala Harris could not be more out of touch. I think it's super ironic that she makes these kind of comments about basically calling people who live in rural areas super out of touch, while herself being super out of touch. Like, I think I thought it was just hilarious that she was basically accusing people in rural areas about not having access to things that don't exist.
Well, Ford,
because she has no idea that they don't exist.
Right, absolutely. Ford, quickly, I mean, we look at these Democrats, they seem to be looking for reasons to say no to voter ID. They're not actually real solutions. I mean, even when states like Texas or other states say, hey, let us make sure that there is no financial barrier to getting the documents necessary to be able to then go and get an ID, Democrats balk at that. So at some point, it seems like they're not so interested in the cost for poor people as much as they are trying to herd poor people into voting booths to vote the way they want them to.
Well, that's exactly right. They're trying to rig the election, and what they're relying on is the bigotry of low expectations, and corporate media gives them a pass on it. It's not just minorities. It's not just rural folks. It's also old folks. They will play up the elderly any way they can, anytime. And here's the ironic thing. If we look at the states with voter ID right now, the 37 states in this country, what you realize is 3 groups have voted the most, okay? That is folks in the rural areas, that's the elderly, and that's African American. The 3 groups that they say are going to be hurt by voter ID. And a Berkeley study confirms that, and it's absolutely jaw-dropping that they'll basically tell you the earth is flat when in fact it's round.
Yeah. And 80% of people, I think the last poll I saw, believe that there should be voter ID. Thank you, everyone. Stand by. We're not done yet. Coming up, call it a sign of the times. A frustrated restaurant owner posting a sign slamming government handouts that are making it hard for him to hire staff. He just wants workers. He can't do it. He says that people don't want to work anymore, period. So we're talking about that next. Stay with us.